Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator. I'm all about capturing and curating career and life stories as a meaningful way to celebrate a milestone moment like a big O birthday, anniversary, retirement, or graduation. And I'm at my best when curating photo books that move your memories from the basement or your phone or your computer to the coffee table, giving you and your family and friends access to these treasured memories for years to come. I also love curating and capturing life and career stories through this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? It's a series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, people in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to the stories of people who have been there, done that, so that they might be inspired with some new ideas, or maybe just comforted knowing they're not alone, that everybody starts somewhere and everybody goes through times of transition and times when they feel stuck. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing Marc Cherabie, who is the Director of Sales for SiteStaff Chat. That's not easy to say, but anyway, welcome, Marc.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a little bit of a tongue twister, but I appreciate you being here.
I got the Director of Sales. That was easy enough, but it was the SiteStaff Chat that, which we'll get to hear more about in a minute.
Absolutely.
But I always like to start with my icebreaker questions. Which are kind of softballs, but anyway, I think they're really insightful for us to learn about who you are and an insight into you as a person. So tell us where you grew up, kind of what part of the country or what part of the world, and a little bit about your family dynamic, where you were in the birth order, how many siblings, and how do you think, geographically where you grew up, and then also your birth order kind of impacted you as an adult.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I was born and raised here in Colorado, in a little suburb just right outside called Aurora. I was born and raised here and never left, in the sense of never lived anywhere else. So I'm one of the rare natives that there are left here in this state. For anybody that grew up here knows. But yeah, I grew up as a child of immigrant parents. Both of my parents immigrated from Lebanon when they were young, fairly young. My mom was in her low 20s. My dad was about 8 years old when he came originally to Massachusetts before coming to Colorado. And I am the youngest of 3 siblings. And I would say for me, growing up, having immigrant parents that really, indulge their culture and their different, all the, like many of the traditions and stuff that, they grew up with here in America, it was a huge blessing for me because it allowed for me to really hold on to the true morals and the important things in my life, but also adapt it and bring it to a completely different world and society that we're living here in Colorado. So I think for me, it was a wonderful blessing to be able to, to have that. And also it taught me a lot of really great lessons too, in a sense of hard work and what the American dream really is. I know a lot of the times when you mention the American dream, people talk about, oh, it's a fallacy, or, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. But I mean, I wouldn't say I'm living proof, but I've lived through it, just watching my dad kind of come here with nothing and being able to build himself up and set his family up for wonderful success in the future. So that is the biggest lesson that I learned for sure. Being the youngest is always something that I still to this day talk about. I think that it's allowed for me to build a lot of character. I think in addition to that, it's allowed for me to really understand, what was right, what was wrong from all the mistakes that my siblings grew up in. I'm always still my mama's baby. So it's pretty nice to just be such a mama's boy and be able to, kind of get some special treatment. So.
Well, and it sounds like you can relish that as well and not fight it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the age difference between you and your siblings?
So my sister is about 6.5 years older than me. My brother's 4.5 years. So,
so they were
5 and 7.
Yeah, closer in age.
So and we're super close still to this day. So
yeah, but then you do get to be more of the baby, right? Because you were that
totally.
young one. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's very interesting that, with you having immigrant parents, like you said, you got to see kind of life through their eyes. And then you're living and growing up in America in a different way than they lived and grew up. But now they're still here living it and experiencing it and wanting their kids to, grow up in America. So, wow, very cool. So yeah. What did you do for activities? Were you, and as your family, were you all into sports or music or what, theater? Or?
Yeah, big time. I was a huge sports buff, both playing and just as a hobby, to research, to watch. I'm a huge fan of all sports. But that kind of came out of nowhere. My parents weren't really into athletics much and didn't really care too much about sports as a whole per se. But I just, if for some reason it was some innate trait, I just fell in love with football and soccer and basketball and everything growing up. I played a lot of soccer, played a lot of sports. That's something that my parents were definitely very high on, was making sure that we're always busy playing sports rather than doing other bad things. So
Yeah. Make sure you're outside, not getting in trouble, probably being
exactly.
active, right? Not just being on
Yep.
the couch and watching TV.
Exactly right.
And I can imagine if they, immigrated here, their focus was how do we survive and thrive, and how do we, run this family? Not thinking about all the extracurricular, right?
Yeah.
Is there language? Do you have two languages or multiple languages?
Yeah, so I grew up speaking Arabic, which is the language that we speak at home for the most part growing up. I didn't really learn how to speak English until kindergarten. So when I was put in schools, I was kind of thrown into the fire. I had a little bit more of a background because my siblings were obviously speaking English to me at times. But yeah, so we speak both English and Arabic in my house. But so it's nice to be able to say I'm bilingual. It's kind of a unique trait.
Yeah, well, and it challenges your brain too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit. Are you an introvert, extrovert, or ambivert?
I'm very extroverted, definitely. I talk about it with my fiance all the time. I'm definitely the kind of person that loves to be around people, loves to meet people, chat their ear off, talk about really anything that I can. I don't want to obviously get into conversations where I just have no idea what I'm talking about, but definitely extroverted.
Definitely extroverted. Okay. And on the fun meter scale of 1 to 5, 1 being couch potato and 5 being the life of the party, where would you put yourself?
Oh, I would say up until I was like 25, I was definitely a 10 on the
On the scale of 1 to 5?
on a scale. Sorry, yeah, exactly. That's how high I was. But now that I've settled down, and just kind of been so busy with work and everything, I really have, began to relish and enjoy my free time. So I'd say now I'm probably about a 3, but I still like to be alive for the party and have a good time.
Oh, okay. And then in terms of risk taking, and on the risk meter, 1 being low, 5 being high risk taker, where do you put yourself?
That's a tough question, because I would say it really varies depending on what part of my life risky, right? So if it talks about like extreme sports, skydiving, cliff diving, 0. You could take me off the scale. Absolutely not. But in terms of maybe, going out there and trying new things and taking a risk with a career or a job opportunity or school or whatever it might be, then I could probably be about a 4.
Oh, okay. Well, I love how these icebreaker questions really set the stage for getting to know you a little bit. And then as we get into your story, into what you're doing today and how you got here, then it really plays out. I will just say, I sometimes take liberties and change your ratings after hearing some of your story.
Okay, that's cool.
Some
I'd love
people
to
are
see.
like, oh, I'm a 4 on the risk taking for the same reasons you listed. And then we start hearing about what they've done in business and in life and in school. And you're like, wait a minute, you're more like an 8 or a 10 on the scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Marc. Well, before we get into how did I get here, we first have to understand, well, where is here? So tell us a little bit about what it means to be the director of sales for SiteStaff Chat. And then we'll get into how did I get here?
Yeah, absolutely. So what it means to me, I'm super proud of where I am in my career and the company that I work for. I really do believe that I was given an opportunity here that I never thought I could find anywhere else. And I never thought that I would find it working for this company either until I did. And ultimately, it was great. So I mean, for me, it was it's wonderful because it's a really good balance of being able to constantly challenge myself, constantly get better and learn and educate myself on the different industries that we serve. But in addition, coming to work with wonderful people that I genuinely do view as being family of mine. So it makes coming to work really enjoyable. And yeah, and it's very fulfilling too, in a sense of not only do I love the people that I come to work with, but the industries that we serve are very caring industries. They're filled with empathy and love and caring for people. We work with a lot of healthcare workers. So it's a really good balance of fun, educational, but also being very rewarding as well.
Oh, okay. So that kind of is fulfilling, definitely for you. I'm not sure that I understand exactly what SiteStaff Chat does. Can you just give us a little overview of what the actual business is? And then
Yeah.
that probably will set the context too for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we do is we provide the best in class overall live chat solution and other great products that we provide for our clients on the website. So I know many times, as consumers, you go on websites, you might click on the chat feature because we live in such a busy world now. And on the other end is either a robot or somebody that's there that's maybe just there to really collect information and not really deliver much of an experience. So what we do here at SiteStaff Chat is we make sure that we represent every single client that we serve to how they want us to, right? We want to be an extension of each individual community or practice or whatever the place of business is, and really make sure that we're emulating their sales process, their culture, and giving the finest experience online. Because when the company was founded by our CEO, he had realized that there was a huge shift in the buyer journey, right? So we're always constantly just shopping online, and you can go online and search 20 different companies at the same time. But people weren't really treating their website, or what we call their virtual front door, in the same manner as they were their physical location. When you walk in the physical, they always have a smiling face, somebody that's welcoming you, and somebody that's there to genuinely care and find out exactly what it is that you need. When you go on a website, it's just sometimes you get videos, but most of the time you just get a lot of text, and it could be maybe a frustrating experience. So what we want to do is we want to bring the human component and put it right onto your website there.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that, I love that virtual front door versus the physical front door. But then
Yeah.
also I have taken advantage of the chat feature as I've been on different sites. And so in many cases that could be you all, right? Answering those that you're an outsourced chat service. But yeah, that's why when you said you have to learn your customers or your clients' industry, right? You have to be able to speak, and your business has to be able to represent their industry and their
Absolutely.
and their business. So, okay, totally
Yeah.
get that. Very cool. Well, interesting. So I'm very curious now how you would get into something like that. So
Yeah.
when I look back, or when you look back on your career in your life, I'm going to take you back to junior high school. Did you always want to be in this service industry, or what did you want to be when you grew up?
No, it's definitely, I asked myself kind of how I ended up here a lot of the times too, but definitely grateful that I did. I mean, growing up, obviously I played sports. I knew that I wasn't realistically going to do that professionally, but I definitely stopped playing a little bit earlier than I wanted to. So in high school, I stopped playing soccer just to really begin working, right? I wanted to be able to be independent. I didn't want to go to my parents anymore and ask them for money. I really just wanted to get out there, get a job, and start learning. When I look back on it now, I'm like, I don't know why I was so eager to, but I definitely was. And I would say that, for the longest time, I was really going back and forth. I think originally what I wanted to do when I was really young was be a meteorologist. And then I was like, that's not really that realistic too. Plus, people get pretty mad at the meteorologists, especially here in Denver, because they can never get the weather right. And then after that, I really had a passion for sports. I had a passion for medicine, and just the healthcare industry as a whole. So I said, well, it could be the best balance. So I settled on becoming a physical therapist. So I really realized that when I was in college. I just went in there kind of having no idea what I was going to do, and then kind of found my niche there. But in the meantime, I always worked sales job. I kind of landed upon one when I was about 16 years old. And I realized I'm pretty good at it in the sense of I really get along with people. I have just a great knack, and I really enjoy speaking with all sorts of people from different age groups, the different ethnicities and backgrounds. So I always worked in sales, and I did that as I was going through school all the time. So I already had that in the back of my mind. I was like, this is something at least I have experience and I could do it and do it well. After I finished my undergrad, it took me a little bit longer than it probably should have. I was continuing to take courses, going for a master's program so that I could apply to physical therapy school. And in the meantime, I was throughout high school and parts of college, I was working for a sunglass company. So we would sell, people call them knockoff sunglasses, but it was really just our own brand. You probably see them in the malls all the time, the 2 for $25 kiosks. That was me, always there, just hustling, greeting people, trying to, sell them some sunglasses. I did that for, about 7 years, kind of moved up to being one of the national account franchise managers as we were franchising the business off. And then I stopped that to really focus in on the classes. When I was done with that, I went back and I actually ended up owning my own kiosk. I ended up becoming a franchisee. instead of being the one who's training the franchisee. So that was a great experience for me to be able to own my own business. Taught me a whole bunch of lessons, both good and bad, about who I was, what I was capable of, all that really good stuff to get kind of more of an entrepreneurial type of mindset. Yeah, and then after that, let's see, I continued taking more advanced courses. So I went back to school. Going back to school, back and forth to school was very common for me. So I'm back to school to take even more classes to be able to apply and hopefully get into physical therapy school. And in the meantime, I was a barista at Starbucks throughout 2 different moments of my life. I worked at my buddy's donut shop to help him out. I worked at Comcast and Xfinity, both on the retail and the business side. And then really what ended up happening was I saw this just randomly one time at night. I was like, all right, I need a change. This will probably be my last, temporary job until I really can get into grad school and, get into my career. So I was just doing a random Google search and I came upon this company and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. I got a sales background. It's a little bit different. I can learn some new things. I felt pretty intrigued by it, but it was weird because something was telling me, I just had like a gut feeling almost that I should just apply for the job. So I did. I got interviewed the next day. And when I came for the interview, I was even pacing in the hallways. I was there pretty early and I was pacing the hallways. I was like, what am I doing here for? Like, really questioning a lot of, is this the right thing for me? And do I actually really know what I'm doing with my life? Right. Because it's like, do I skip out on this opportunity to put my chips in one basket here? But if that doesn't work out, you just kind of start to get anxious. But again, something was telling me, what do you have to lose? Just go at it, go in an interview. And I did. And I haven't looked back since. I haven't really even thought about becoming a physical therapist afterwards. I never envisioned that I would enjoy this job as much as I do and create a career about it. But it's really, presented me with a wonderful opportunity that I don't think I can find anywhere else, or if I can, it's not going to be very easy to find. So very happy to be here. Sorry, that was long-winded.
Well, no, that's a great overview. And I tell you, it is interesting how people get from, well, where did they start out? And then all the different steps and right turns or left turns, or maybe going straight, that they decide to embark on in order to get where they're at. You mentioned you never envisioned that you would be here. I was in a career working with money orders and official checks. And I never, as a young person, said, oh, what I really want to do when I grow up is work with money orders and official checks. And I didn't work at a bank. I worked at a payment processing company. But it is funny how you get into a business and into a culture and into an environment that works for you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter maybe what the product is, as long as I guess the product still aligns with your values, that you're not selling, something maybe illegal or exactly or something you can't, that is not, that's fraudulent or doesn't, work with your, your values and everything. So we don't always intend on where we're at, but then we end up somewhere. So
yeah, definitely.
Very cool. So are you said you haven't looked back. You're now the physical therapist thing is really not on the radar. So tell us more about, what's going on with your career then. So you're in the director of sales. I'm assuming, did you start as the director of sales, or did you start in sales and then work your way up?
No. Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely came in. I started just really getting a very small wage to really learn, and then eventually just hit the phone and begin cold calling. But I know when you look at it, you're like, that doesn't sound fun. But it wasn't just the aspect of the cold calling. Like I said, it was the environment, the culture, and the ability of us to be able to earn unlimited commission, uncapped, that was residual and paid out every single month. You don't really see that. And I've worked a lot of different sales jobs. And even as an owner of a business, you don't ever see that. Money's never residual, but we were presented with that opportunity here. So what I loved about it is that I was empowered to really truly work for my paycheck, and be rewarded for the amount of effort that I had put in. It's definitely wasn't for everybody, but given my sales background and just the me getting used to being rejected, I guess, and people telling me no, helped me really just battle through it. And then as we continue to, get my feet wet and get the ball rolling and get things going, I was able to thankfully, move up in the company. And now I'm overlooking a huge sales team. We started here, it was like 2 of us. It was a really small office. And now there's about 9 people in this office, and we're still growing and overlooking a sales team. And we've made a lot of advancements on the technology side too, to be able to present us with more solutions and products to be able to help serve our clients and to be able to sell to anybody who's not one. So yeah, just love the opportunity that I could have a growing salary month over month forever, as long as they were clients with us. And we have a really great client retention rate. So I didn't think that that was a big problem. So yeah.
So it kind of fit with your values as well, right? Is that you want to be more relational, it sounds like, than transactional.
Yeah, it did.
Keep it-
Absolutely.
To
And
keep
that's
it
the,
residual, right?
yes, that's the really the best part about this sales process is it's not about like, very salesy. It's so much about relationship building, making a friend, just, extending your hand and saying, how can we help you? Even if you're not a client, we're really well connected in the industry. We'd love to come to your events. We'd love to come to your community anybody that's around here in the area and volunteer and attend your events. And we had a really great bingo event last week. So what I mean by fulfilling, a lot of people are like, how is a sales job fulfilling? Is I get to be involved in a lot of senior living is our biggest vertical by far. So I get to be involved with a lot of people that work at senior living communities and also get to meet a lot of the residents there and just hearing their stories and seeing how much these people care for them and how important it is. And then in addition to that, all the different chats that we have. I don't obviously do the chatting. We have a wonderful chat team, but when I look over the transcripts who are reviewing them, I mean, a lot of these chat hosts are saying they're crying during the conversation. It gets very emotional. It gets very, very personal. That it's such a difficult decision to come to be able to have to put maybe in an aging parent into a memory care facility or something like that. But on the other side, it really shows, the great of humanity and how much people care and how welcoming and open they are and how much they truly want to, they want their community to resonate as much with them as their home did. So really just create a very special connection. So when I mean fulfilling, I'll get a good mix of that too, which is always really nice to have as well.
So you're actually seeing the chats and the difference that you're making. It isn't just about deals. How many deals did I close? How many
Absolutely.
clients, that type of thing. You're really looking at what's the impact that we're having on people's lives and our clients' business. Wow.
Yeah, that's always the most important part for us is because we know if we're having a big impact on the clients, on their residents, then everything else is gonna, fall into place, right? We'll be able to grow and the word will get out, and it's a very well connected, incestuous industry. So.
And now we're going to take a short break and hear a few words from a very happy client.
Oh my gosh, if you're considering hiring Kathy Lawless to do a book for you, you need to do it. My name is Ann DuPont, and I'm Chair Emeritus of a nonprofit that's been based in Denver called the Leadership Investment. And after 20 plus years of being in business, we decided we had to celebrate and commemorate all of the great work we'd done and the impact we'd had in the Denver community. So we hired Kathy Lawless and Life Story Curator to help us do exactly that. And I've got to tell you, the result has been simply outstanding. We went into it with a little bit of fear, thinking, is this going to be too much work? Can we really take this on? And Kathy just made it absolutely painless. She was fun. She was creative. She broke the work into bite-sized pieces that we could really take hold of and get done. And she just made it a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughter along the way. And the feedback from the members of our organization, from the staff, the community, the volunteers, has simply been outstanding. It has really done quite a remarkable job of capturing the essence of everything we achieved over 20 years. So if you're thinking about doing something like this for your organization, for your career, for your family, I would highly recommend it, and I would absolutely say that Kathy Lawless and Life Story Curator is the person for you.
Now, back to our story. So you talk about, it sounds like, sales has been this common theme since you were 16 through your career. But tell us a little bit about how you've maybe transitioned from, it sounds like you went from business to consumer, now you're more business to business. I mean, did you have some formal sales training? Maybe you took a strength and your natural personality style, but then have you had some formal sales training to help you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it formal. It's not like I took formal classes, but it's constant. I mean, it's especially in sales in general, but business to business, it's a constant training, right? It's constantly receiving feedback from your peers and giving feedback and learning from this mistake, or maybe I could have, went after this a little bit better, or there's so many different things, but ultimately, I think that sales as a whole is complicated a little bit too much, right? I think at the end of the day, people buy things. I mean, the most important part I'd say, is you have to obviously believe in the product that you sell. But people always buy things from people that they like, from whoever they feel comfortable with. So the most important thing is you want to come out, you want to be very authentic, you want to be very genuine, and you just want to build a great relationship with them on a personal level. And after that, things will usually spiral in the right direction, one way or the other. So
yeah, what's that saying, that people buy from people they know, like, and trust,
exactly,
and have fun with.
yeah, exactly. Or like go golfing. Golfing's a big
yeah. So what about your transition then from being salesperson to now sales director? I mean, that's also another level of, now you're leading, you're managing, you're inspiring, you're encouraging, you're supporting. How have you had some formal training from a leadership perspective or management?
I have. I've had a lot of mentors throughout my whole journey, I guess, to getting here, that have really helped me. But it's still, you can always take people's advice, but being able to find how it fits within your personality is the challenge. But it's a constant training battle. We were in Houston last week for a trip, and we actually were able to, spend some time with the CEO and his wife at the company, and they had us over to their house. And even then, it was a constant, just let me tell you from my experience how to do it. So the biggest change for me is now I'm obviously responsible for a lot more people than just myself, but it's really finding that balance of having a good time, being understandable, but being firm and stern when I need to be. My natural instinct is to always, be a friend and be the biggest optimist. And I want to be, I want everybody to just be happy. And that's still very important. But you have the specific lines that you need to draw to be able, for everybody's sake, to be able to really make sure that there's full transparency, but there's the level of mutual respect, and that everybody's working. But that's what I would say that the biggest change was, is that I'm kind of managing multiple people and being able to really adapt to each personality. What's their style, right? Some people love to be micromanaged. They like to be told exactly how it is, very firm. Other people, not so much. You have to be really cautious and careful with how you phrase things, and make sure that they have an understanding of the reason that they're being told something. So it's great. It's great because it's fun. It's different every day. And you continue to learn and really grow professionally, but also personally as well.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely in the people business, right? And so whether you're doing the direct sale yourself or you're leading a team of sales, right, you're still got to interact with people and figure out, well, what's going to work best in this relationship and this environment, whether it's your employee or your client, probably, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself going next then? Are you just in this role new, or are you looking at, I want to do more from an operations perspective, or is sales kind of always going to be your kind of track?
Yeah, I think sales definitely is probably always going to be my track here. There was a moment here I was really wearing multiple hats. We had a big transitionary period, and all good transitionary periods, but it allowed for me to really start taking on other responsibilities for sales. And although it was fun and I enjoyed it because it was different, it's just certain things aren't good for me, like how things work on the technology side of things, or marketing, and how the marketing companies work, and all the little jargon that they use. So I think I'm going to be in just the sales role and continue to grow as much as I can here. This is definitely my where I'm comfortable. So,
well, that's great to know, because I tell you, a lot of times, you think the grass is greener maybe on the other side, or you think, oh no, maybe I want to be COO, or maybe I want to take on the director of marketing and sales. And you know what I mean? Because there's always, kind of different aspirations. But also, I think if we know ourselves and you get into something, you're kind of like, wait a minute, the other part, super easy. I'm super good at this, right? And this part, this is a struggle, not liking it, so you got to listen to what's going on with, probably physically as well as what your brain is saying, right? In terms of, is this for me?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I mean, I think for me, that's the biggest thing is I know that if I'm trying to do too much because naturally I want to, it could really be at the expense of the company and the expense of the overall goal that we're trying to reach. So they always say like leadership, the number one trait in leadership is delegating. I always kind of use the football reference, right? I'm sure there's a lot of football players that feel like they could play multiple positions, but ultimately they're going to be put in the one that they are the best at, so they can master one craft and help the team as a whole. So that's kind of what I view it as.
Yeah. And then again, there are those utility players, right? That can be, that can really go from position to position, but they may not be, the best at every position, but they're really good and can really fill in. Yeah.
100%. I was just talking about that with one of my colleagues. He's exactly that for us in the office. He's able to do anything on the fly at any point. So he's kind of that utility player. And that, like I said, those are really important too. And he knows that he's good at that. So it's just important that you understand where your strengths are and how you can best help the team as a whole.
Yeah, and how you fit in. One of my last interviews talked about one of his strengths was fitting into a high performing team, that he could play because he had so much experience, and he's later on in life, so he had a lot of experience. He'd been the CEO, he'd been the CFO, he had been, in the IT officer. So, there was a lot of roles that he could fulfill. So when he comes into an organization, which is also what his business is kind of doing that fractional leadership type role. But he talked about that he could fit into a high performing team and really assess what is needed. So it sounds like you're already looking at that too, because sometimes we tend to just be so focused on what we're doing, we don't look at, well, what's really going on with the whole team and how do I round out the team?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's part of that transition, right? The leadership role is, okay, I got to back off of exactly what it is that I'm doing and assess everything, the bigger picture. So 100% agree.
So you're in such a great place now. That's awesome. You mentioned kind of a lot of stops and starts with school. Any times when you really felt stuck? I mean, part of what I like to bring out in this podcast is, if people are feeling stuck, how do you get unstuck, and what works for other people? So do you have an example of maybe when you were feeling stuck and scratchy? I mean, you talked about walking the hall when you were in the interview going, why am I even here? Should I be doing this? Were there other examples of that have caused you pause but you got yourself out of it?
Oh my goodness. So many times I felt like I was just stuck. And, what I always found that I was doing was really just blaming myself too much. And I was comparing myself a lot to people, my close friends or my close family members that I grew up with that are, about the same age. I'm like, I'm not where they are in their life. That was a big mistake too, because that can really, put you into a funk of negativity that you don't want to ever really be in, because everybody's journey is so different. I know that now, but at the time, it's very overwhelming. I felt stuck on multiple occasions. I mean, the first time I really felt it is, when college hits and you're like, whoa, what am I going to be doing with the rest of my life? And then a couple of years passed by, and then I felt like I was just in and out of jobs. I was like, I like school, but I don't love school. I later in my life learned to really love school and learning. But at the time I was just like, I wasn't 100% committed to one thing. I was like 10% committed to 10 things, if that makes sense. So I was always just kind of in this circle of, it's like in a hamster wheel almost, just going round and round. And then before you know it, life passes you by so fastly. It's like, I really now need to start thinking about what I'm going to do with my life. I started, when me and my fiance first got together, you start thinking about, oh gosh, how am I going to provide for her? How am I going to provide for my future family? Like, I'm getting to that stage in my life. So it can cause a lot of anxiety. So it's just always about going, around and around and feeling stuck and financial problems. Am I going to be happy? And I want to wake up to work loving my job, because I've had jobs that paid really well, but I wake up with a pit in my stomach, not looking forward to going. I've had jobs that I've enjoyed, but there's no way I could get by on them. So it's just really about going back and forth, and you could find yourself really beating yourself up a lot. But ultimately, the way that I'd say that I got out of it, number one was obviously my support system, right? Just making sure that my family always had my back, and that they always were pushing me to just say, hey, don't put pressure on yourself. Just go out there, put yourself out there, and control what you can control, right? Which is the amount of work that I put in. And I think that's really what led me to get here. Is I've dabbled in so many different industries and so many different jobs. Obviously, I know I didn't speak about many of them, but I've worked in a lot of different jobs, and just went out there and met people and talked with people and surrounded myself with a good support group. And that would be the number one thing I would say on how to get out of it, is just trust that as long as you feel confident in what you're doing and in the amount of work that you're putting in, sometimes life has a really, really crazy way of working itself out. And and finding your niche. But you're never going to know what your niche is. You think you like, just like you said earlier, the grass might be green on the other side. I might think that I really would have loved to become a physical therapist, but when I was shadowing and when I was doing some internships, I realized that there's specific types of physical therapy that I do like, and there's others that I don't. So it's really just about going out there and experiencing it rather than having a preconceived notion about something.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, you had no preconceived notion about where you are now, and it turned out to be a great fit, right? So
Yeah.
you were open to something, you thought it was short term, and then it turned into something longer term.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I love how you started the conversation, which was that you were putting all this pressure on yourself to be in a certain position in your life, right? Based on your friends. I read that once, which was, they did a study on happiness, and pretty much people are about as happy as they are in their friend group. They look at their friend group. And so it's like, well, what salary, what amount of money are people happy? And it's like, if they're making the same amount as their friends, then they're happy, because then they're all kind of in the same socioeconomic world, probably doing things together, can do things. But if you're not at that same level, I can see how that might cause unhappiness, which is you feel like less than, and how come I'm not where they are, and why can't I do the things they're doing and enjoying? So you were, as you call it, right, you should on yourself. Well, I should be further along, I should have a different career right now. And you're like, but I'm still learning and growing and figuring things out and finding your fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sister helped me a lot with that too. She always talked to me when I was telling her, I was like walking her through the steps of if I was going to go to physical therapy school. I was like, by the time I'm done, I'll be like 32, 33 years old. And she really told me, she's like, you can't put a timeline on anything, right? Because that's just a huge problem I think we have as a society. But she's like, when you're 40, are you going to care if you're a physical therapist at 35 or 25? She's like, you're not going to care. You just, at that point in your life, you're just going to be happy that you're there. And that really was like an eye opener. She was like, you're absolutely right. Like looking back on it, it's not going to matter when it happens, as long as you got to where you're going to. So it worked out for me, not in the physical therapy role, but in a role that I absolutely love. But if I were to look at it, and if this were to happen when I was 35 or 38, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't say, oh, I wish it happened when I was 28. So
yeah. Interesting. I just read a book called Think Again by Adam Grant. And one of the chapters, he talks about young people and how they make decisions about their careers. And he was giving examples of some young people who have this predetermined forecast or predetermined notion what they want to do. And they stick it out no matter what, because they have to stick to the plan. I've told people I'm going to do this, I'm going to do, and then they wake up that one day and they're like, I am not happy. Yeah. And so his point, because, obviously the title of the book is Think Again, is just how do you, how can you be disciplined and achieve the things you want? At the same time, how can you be open to other ideas and maybe recognize when maybe you do need a course correction, and, when it's the right time to maybe settle. I shouldn't say settle. I mean, just maybe stop chasing. Sometimes we get in that chase mode of, I want that next promotion, or I should be doing more, and I want more responsibility or whatever, versus just going, what, this is where I want to be, and I'm in my zone, and let's stay here for a bit. Yeah.
Let's just be happy. No, I couldn't agree more. I'd love to read that book, actually. Wrote it down, but yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I followed that path that he seems to be speaking about in the book, but I didn't do it intentionally, right? I just kind of was forced into almost, or just my curiosity, like, let's try this, let's try that. But absolutely, I think that the best way to really understand what you truly want to do is to go out and try a bunch of different things, because then you actually have things to compare it up against, and it gives you a good metric. So,
and you're in it, you're doing it, you're not outside thinking about it or just hearing about it, in a way that you're like, well, I don't know if I would like that or not, or I don't think I would like that, and you have no idea till you get in it, and then you're like, wait a minute, you are so personable and you're so good with people, so why not, take that as a strength and go forward. So I was talking to a gentleman just the other day about, life choices and careers. And he made the comment about, well, I tell people not to follow their passion. I tell them to follow what they're good at. He said, because, I can be passionate about food, but that doesn't mean that I need to become a chef, right?
True.
And, it's like, but I am passionate about troubleshooting and solving problems, and which is kind of down the sales role, similar to you, that's what he sees, is that's how he kind of finds his way in the world, is how can he help people by troubleshooting and finding solutions for them. So it's really interesting.
No, certainly. I 100% agree. I think I have a lot of passions, but I don't necessarily care to have my passions be my work. I think my passions are my escape, right? They're my hobbies are what I do to, unwind and clear my mind. So I agree. I think that having passions and then doing what you're good at are very different sometimes.
Yeah. And you get to do something now you're very good at and have probably become passionate about.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't even know it.
Exactly.
It's funny. You also mentioned that age thing. I remember I went to college in a non-traditional way. So I had already been working in the, full-time job. And then I was exploring, going to school part-time because I wanted to get my bachelor's degree. Again, didn't know really in what, but I just assumed like business because I was already in a corporate role. And I remember sitting in this orientation and they talked about, that if you go part-time, it'd probably take anywhere from 5 to 7 years. And I just remember that first thought in my head was, oh my God, do you know how old I'm going to be in 5 to 7 years? Someone actually asked the question and they were like, trying to use that as an excuse on why not to do the program. And the woman said, well, how old will you be in 5 to 7 years if you don't do the program? Exactly. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. The 5 to 7 years is going to happen. So why not have a degree at the end of the 5 to 7 years?
Exactly. So like similar to what my sister was talking about, that's the even more like aha moment. You're like, like it's not like I'm not going to be, whatever age at that time, it's going to happen regardless. So you might as well just go after it.
Yeah. So it takes what it takes. So don't just get so hung up on that and what is, all these other circumstantial stuff, right? It's like, what are you committed to? Not letting the circumstances run you. So, okay. Well, Marc, this has been so enjoyable. Thank you. We got a little philosophical here but also very inspirational. So
I like it. I've enjoyed it.
So as we start to wrap up a bit, tell me, what do you think has served you best when you look back on your career? And it can be a habit, a strength, maybe a characteristic. What do you think has kind of served you best when you look back?
That's a tough question for me. I'd say the number one thing that served me best from a characteristic standpoint is I have a really weird innate ability to, I wouldn't say read people like a psychic, but get an understanding of what people are thinking, what people are feeling, and just kind of paint a little bit of a picture of who they are, what they are. So it's helped me a lot in sales, right? Because I understand, like, I can read, okay, maybe they feel like I'm getting a little too pushy, or maybe they're wanting this, or they're kind of wanting that. But that's really helped me grow within the companies that I worked in, and in my personal life too. People always tend to be just venting. I call it Cherabie therapy, right? I'm not an actual therapist, but people kind of just start to vent to me about their problems. And like, I never talked to anybody about this. I just feel so comfortable around you, which I obviously take as a huge compliment. But I think I've just have this this natural ability to really connect with people of all ages, of all backgrounds, and I don't know how, or I don't know what it's exactly attributed to, but that's I think what was is something that kind of stuck out when you asked me that. So
yeah. Well, and what's cool there too is that you recognize it now, and maybe you didn't. Did you feel like you recognized that when you were young, or could you put your finger on that, or when do you think you kind of recognize? Oh, I get this, and and maybe it's when you recognize other people don't get it, right, and that you do have a different gift.
That's exactly what it was. Is I started realizing, like, how is this not easy for you to understand, or how is that not easy for you to read? I would say I probably started noticing it full-fledged 2-3 years ago. So pretty recently. And then I started realizing, I was like, I'm talking with, all my friends and family. I'm like, man, people just all of a sudden, they just really always want to vent and talk to me. And like, they'll tell me like the most personal stories in their lives. I've never met them in my life. And they'll even point it out. They're like, yeah, because you're super personable, but you have a great ability to connect with people and read people and understand them. And I'm like, that kind of makes sense, because I'll get an idea of what I think somebody might be like, obviously not good or bad. It's just in general. And it'll come to fruition and be like, oh, I was right. And, so it's just kind of like over time, you start realizing I'm guessing right a lot. So
yeah,
it must have something.
Well, and you're paying attention to the data points. That's one of the things I've learned through doing all these interviews is that, when we're younger, we don't have enough data points to know, well, is that a strength? Am I good at that? Are other people good at that? Right. Until you kind of have enough of a pattern to go, oh, this is kind of my thing. I know how to handle this situation. I'm not panicking. I'm calm. Everybody else seems to be panicking. Why are they panicking? It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
different ways to handle it, but you have to have enough data points. And then when you start paying attention to the data points, then that's when I think that zone of genius that they talk about, right? Then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now I can really live into this and make it my thing.
Yeah. Data points is a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, last question as we start to wrap up here is any words of wisdom that really impacted you, like maybe when you were stuck in your career, or that maybe got you out of a funk, or that maybe you like to use to help people? I love when people have, either a quote that they love or maybe their own quote. It's just words of wisdom that you'd like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to get this quote tattooed on my body, but my mom would probably murder me, so I didn't. But I don't know if I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Cool Runnings. It's probably my favorite movie of all time. It's about the Jamaican bobsled team, and they said something when they were doing a toast, and the words were "Peace be the journey," and it really stuck out to me for some reason. I started thinking, I love the way that sounds. What does it mean? And for me, I always tell people, "Peace be the journey." Like, control what you can control, and then just enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey of life, enjoy where things take you. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, and just have fun. So I always say, peace be the journey of, like, have fun, enjoy your life, and wherever life takes you, just make the best about it. Go about it as optimistic as you can, and you'll find that when you have genuine positivity that you're spreading, this is going to sound very cheesy, but when you're spreading a lot of positivity, it really does have a funny way of coming back into your life. So peace be the journey is definitely my favorite quote.
Wow, I love that. And when you told your story, it sounds like you hit that at a point, because you were shooting on yourself, you were doubting, second guessing. Sound like you were in a space of angst, right? And yet then you found where you are now, and it feels like peace be the journey. You're living it, man. You're living it.
Yeah. I used to tell myself that all the time when I'm getting anxious. I start creeping self-doubt. I'm just like, all right, peace be the journey. Let's go. Like, let's just go at it, tackle it head on. And yeah, I think about it and say it all the time, every day. Kind of just become innate. So, and it got me here. So I'm thrilled about it, but yeah.
Awesome. And that is going to be, I think that's a great ending to our time today, because you never know who needed to hear that today. There could be someone on the other end just going, oh my God, that's what I needed. That's exactly what I needed today. Peace be the journey.
That's the hope. I hope so. I'd love if I could help anybody, that'd be great. So.
Well, thank you, Marc. It has been a pleasure getting to know you, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate it.
And listeners, if you enjoyed today's interview, please subscribe below and you'll be alerted as other interviews are published. And listeners, if you have any questions for me or for Marc, you can find us on lifestorycurator.com. That's my website. That's where I'll post this podcast interview, but I'll also post Marc's social media information so that you can get a hold of him should you want to learn more about his business or learn more about him. So on that note, let's stay safe, stay well, and let's keep sharing those stories. Have a great day.